Hello. Hopefully the internet is working okay here. I got to get a better lighting setup, but it's nice to see all of you saying we're here because we're here. And I hope that you're well. Um, it's nice to see you all. And thank you for that lovely greeting. So I thought today I would do something a little different. And well, I mean, a little different. It's the second live stream. So they're all going to be different. None of them are going to be the same. But I thought I might a little torn between reading fiction and reading nonfiction, basically. Uh, but uh, but yeah. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna read to you, and then I'm probably gonna read fiction today, and then I'll read the Anthropocene Review. You know, we got plenty of time. This book doesn't come out for like 240 days. Update a couple updates, and then I'll read, and then I'll answer some questions at the end of the stream if that works for y'all. I in a lot of cases I won't see your comments now because they scroll by pretty fast. But I will see them later when I rewatch the stream. So just bear that in mind. Feel free to leave feedback is what I'm saying. I've now signed about 17,000 sheets, which is great. It's a good start. I have a ways to go. I don't know how far because I don't know how many I'm eventually going to have to sign. But like, you can see here, like these are all signed. This is about 500. So I've done about 34 times. You know, it's been good. It's been good. I measured the success of signing partly by how many times I write DFTBA. Because when I'm really in a flow state, I don't write it that much, but it's been good. I mean, some of these signatures have been just absolutely perfect. Like, I'd like to call your attention to this one, which is as close to the like platonic ideal of my signature as I've ever been in my entire life. So anyway, it's been fun to sign, and I'm on my way. I don't know how much longer I have. I wish that I had more time to sign, but there's been a lot of work this week, so haven't had a ton of time, but that's okay. It's also a blessing to have work, of course. So I'm going to lower myself down a little so those lights are not directly in everyone's field of vision. There's a little bit, the light isn't perfect, but that's okay. So I'm going to read fiction to you. Some of you will have heard this before, but you've never heard it with a webcam of this quality. So there's that. And then after I read this, I'll answer some questions, and then I will go upstairs and take care of my children. All right. Yeah, so this is currently called The Junket. Juniper and I, it's about two kids who are in a movie. Juniper and I were sitting across from each other on the plane with a fold-out table and a sizable vase of flowers between us, such that Juniper's head seemed to be made of tightly bunched rosebuds. The flight attendant asked me if I wanted a glass of wine. I wasn't quite of legal drinking age, but even modest celebrity is a kind of adulthood. I said I would love to try the red, and she poured, the wine not splashing into the glass, but swirling into it, and I took a sip as the flight attendant looked at me expectantly. "It's great," I told her, and she said, "I'm so glad you like it." And Juniper said, "When I die, please bury me with this plane." And Katie, the publicist, said, "If you want to own a plane like this, you better do Gods of Andromeda." And Juniper said, "Ah, the eternal dilemma, to lose one's soul or to lose one's plane." Juniper always talked like that. We went back to playing bullshit, two actors with pretty good reads on each other. After a while, Juniper said, "Will you run it with me? The Gods of Andromeda thing?" "Yeah," she said. "Sure," I said. I wanted to push the flowers out of the way. It was ridiculous to have a conversation without seeing each other, but I didn't do it for some reason. They didn't feel like my flowers. Juniper scooted out from the table and came over to my side. Her hair was down over her face. She was wearing sweatpants and a tank top, but neither looked particularly casual or comfortable. She took a sip of my wine and then asked, "May I have a glass of this?" Janet, the acquisition specialist, leapt off the couch and at the back of the plane to get the flight attendant to get Juniper some wine. Juniper pulled out some extremely folded paper from her sweatpants and handed it to me. It reminded me of a middle school love letter. I unfolded the pages and scanned the action. You're Mediv? I guess if I want this plane, I am. Mediv, guardian of the something. Realm? Dominion? I smirked and just went for it. You dare interrupt the lawful trial of Agrippon? I fear I must, for strike this woman. The orcs! There was gravel in her throat all of a sudden. The orcs, my lord. They've laid waste to Callanbath. What is not fire is ash. Our allies are gone. Our enemies at the gate. The future is in doubt, and the past is buried in the ground, my lord. There is only time, and that time is now. Can it be? The time for questions has passed, Garon. The time of speaking has passed. We fight now, all of us. No trials, no tribes, no guilds. Only man and orc. We fight for the Callanbath that was and for the Callanbath that shall be. That was good, I said. It kind of makes me want to die, she answered. Then maybe don't do it? Oh, she's doing it, said Katie the publicist. That movie's going to shit money. Ellen, sitting next to her on the couch, agreed. Everyone with a goddamn pulse is trying to get into Gods of Andromeda one way or another. Brilliant director, massive budget. It's the next tentpole for Sony. And Katie is correct about it shitting money. It's going to get money norovirus and shit money wallet pukes money. Juniper and I shared a look. Would you do it? She asked me. Probably. I didn't tell her, but I was actually in the running for Garon's anxious brother. I'd sent in a self-tape and they'd liked it. And once they cast the leads, they wanted me to come in for a chemistry read. My agent, Bob, thought I had a good chance at it. Everyone says Brian Lansing is brilliant, I said. Juniper rolled her eyes at me, but leaned in. I could smell her shampoo. If he's so smart, why did he direct that X-Men movie? That X-Men movie made Buy This Plane money, Katie said. Also, I'd liked it, but I didn't want to say anything. Studio Todd squeezed onto the couch between Janet and Karen and said, Have you ever heard the moth joke? Jesus Christ, Todd, if you tell one more dad joke, I'm going to jump out of this plane. So this moth flies into a cardiologist's office, Todd said. He had gray hair, but it was cut fashionably, and he always wore a very trim suit. Talked a lot, so I knew a lot about him. He had girls both in college, which you wouldn't believe the cost. He woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and ran for exactly 5 miles and had been doing so 6 days a week since he was in high school. He told me that once he'd torn something in his knee and couldn't run for 6 months, and he'd glimpsed insanity. He told a lot of jokes. And this cardiologist, a cardiologist is a heart doctor? Yeah, we know what a fucking cardiologist is, Todd, said Katie. The cardiologist says, What seems to be the problem, Moth? And the moth says, Oh, Doc, if only there were one problem. My father's dead, and I miss him terribly. I'm still a young moth, and I don't know how to live in the world without him. My girlfriend, I guess she was my girlfriend, but I'm not even really sure. She's gone completely mad and no longer even recognizes me. And worst of all, my mother has taken up with my uncle. I just feel so lost and alone, Doc. I don't even know if I want to go on living. And the cardiologist says, Well, those are very serious problems, Moth, but it seems to me like you need to see a psychiatrist. I'm a cardiologist. What brought you here today? And the moth says, Oh, the light was on. Only Juniper laughed, but she really laughed. I'm just going to check to make sure that it's still working. It is still working. Several people got my Hamlet joke. Okay, I'll keep reading. When we landed in this is the next chapter. When we landed in California, Katie the publicist wanted to take a picture of Juniper and me in front of the plane, but I said no because I couldn't have people in real life know that I was on a private plane. You Insta for your fans, not your friends, said Katie the publicist. I Insta for my friends, I said. Juniper laughed. She took a step toward me and grabbed my hand. I love it. I love you. He's like the last truffula tree in Lorax land. Don't cut him down, Katie. Let him live. There were 2 black SUVs waiting for us. Juniper and Katie and Studio Todd and Janet, the acquisition specialist, disappeared into one of them, and then Ellen and me got into the other. Our driver said his name was Al. Like Alvin? I asked. No, he said. I'm Kai, I said. Like Karate Kid? Yeah, exactly like it, I said. You don't sound like you're from LA, he said after a second. Beside me, Ellen was in her phone. The SUV didn't smell like one thing or another so much as it smelled overwhelming. "I'm from Florida," I told him. "My condolences," he said. Ellen handed me the phone. It was Juniper's Instagram, a picture of her and me holding hands with the plane in the background. "Juniper posted this?" "If I had to guess," Ellen said, "Katie posted it for Juniper. She said I was the last truffula tree in Lorax land, and then she cut me down. Christ, Kai, no need to be dramatic. It's Instagram." Ellen worked for the studio, while Katie worked for Juniper. Once you get famous enough, you get your own publicist. Juniper was getting famous enough. She was about to happen. That's what Ellen said. Ellen said people like Juniper don't know what's coming, but it's coming anyway. I was about to happen too, but not in the same way. "Where in Florida?" Al asked. On the Gulf side near Sarasota. A lot of old people down that way." "Yeah. You from here?" "No, I'm from Iran. You know Iran?" "Sure," I said. "You in a movie?" "Yeah." "What movie?" "It's called Pro Patria Mori," I said. "What's it about?" "I don't know," I said. "I haven't seen it." Ellen jumped in. "It's about a major in the Marine Corps who returns home from a deployment overseas and begins caring for the daughter of a Marine in his platoon who died, and he falls in love with that girl's mother." "Majors don't have platoons," I said. "They have battalions." "A Marine in his battalion who died," Ellen said. "So who are you?" Al asked. "I'm the major's son." The movie's mostly about him and this girl, but in the movie, he kind of neglects me while taking care of this other girl, and I get kind of messed up. "You get kind of messed up," he repeated. "Yeah, in the movie," I clarified. After a while, Al said, "I meet a lot of actors." "You ever met Keanu Reeves?" Ellen asked. "Sure, I met Keanu. Drove Keanu a few times. Nice guy, quiet." "Keanu's in the movie," Ellen said. I could hear Al smile. Keanu makes everybody smile. It's his superpower. "That's great. Congratulations, kid. What are you doing next?" "I don't know," I said. "I don't even know what I'm doing tonight." Al laughed. Outside, Los Angeles was tinted gray. I'd only been here a few times, twice to screen test for things I didn't get, and once to screen test for Pro Patria Mori. I lived in New York, or I guess I did. I'd been there since the movie wrapped, and before that, I'd been in Louisiana for a couple months for the movie, and before that, I spent a year in New York, and before that, I'd been a senior in high school. I don't like to think too much about all that stuff, where you are in your life or in your career or where you live or whatever. It just gives me a stomach ache. I get the same stomach ache when I look at the Google Calendar that Ellen made for me, laying out the 22 days between now and the movie's premiere, or when I think about what my brother is doing right now, or when I look at Instagram, or when the ATM asks if I want to see my bank account's balance. I have some kind of stomach ache most of the time, and so I don't eat enough, which is part of the reason I don't look like someone who's about to happen. Everybody always says that Los Angeles is sunny, but it's mostly just dry. No weeds growing in the sidewalk cracks. Home always looked like nature was about to take the land back from us, everything wet and humid and green and growing. In LA, even the green lawns looked parched, never enough water. Al asked me if I liked Keanu, and I told him I did, which was the truth. And I thought about how one time Keanu told me that a good life can fit entirely in your car, and a great life can fit entirely on your motorcycle. I'm going to check to make sure that it's still working. Yeah. All right. I think it is still working. I've only been reading for like 10 minutes, so I'll keep going. Al dropped us off at the Hotel Bel Air, and Ellen and I had to take 3 different elevators to get to my suite, which had a living room and a huge patio with its own miniature heated pool. I texted Juniper, "My room has a pool?" And Juniper texted back, "If you turn the TV on and walk around the room, it follows you." So I turned the TV on. Romantic piano music played while the screen showed information about the Hotel Bel Air. Ellen and I walked all around the room, and the TV tilted itself to face us wherever we went. When I ducked, the TV rotated downward so that I could still see all of the information the Hotel Bel Air wanted to share about itself. After a while, Ellen got bored with the TV and went into the bedroom and sat down on the couch with her iPad out. I had a text from Bob that said, "Call me when you can, Andromeda update." I didn't really want to call him though. Bob talked so much it was kind of exhausting, and I was feeling a little dizzy from the plane. There was a bottle of champagne on the coffee table in there. I don't know how that's supposed to be intoned. There was a bottle of champagne on the coffee table in there. I got to think about that sentence. The couch looked beautiful but uncomfortable. Lots of right angles. Um, so I think what that needs to be is like the couch looked beautiful. I mean, this is not the first problem with what I've read, but it's the first problem that really annoyed me. Uh, the couch looked beautiful. The couch looked beautiful but uncomfortable. Lots of right angles, and there was a. You need that bottle of champagne. Uh, how's this? The couch looked beautiful but uncomfortable. Lots of right angles. There was a bottle of champagne on the coffee table in front of it, and it shifted a little as some ice melted. I turned off the TV, and Ellen said, "We should talk about the movie." So I went into the bedroom with her and lay on the bed on my stomach. The movie is really good. She said it like she was sorry. But, I said, no, but it's a great movie, and you're great in it. But, how do you feel about Juniper? I like Juniper. Great. The truth was, I didn't know Juniper well. Most of my scenes had been filmed in Louisiana, and all of hers had been filmed in Canada. I'd only shot with her for a week, the part of the movie where I fly up to confront my dad about abandoning me to take care of this other family. I liked listening to Juniper, and I liked watching movies with her, but I like listening to and watching movies with most people. Are we doing anything after we see the movie? I asked Ellen. You are going out to dinner with Juniper at the only vegetarian restaurant on earth with 2 Michelin stars. I am going to eat takeout Thai with my wife on our couch while we watch television and continue our long-standing argument about when we can start a family, whether we can start a family when one of us travels so much for work. But back to Juniper. You like Juniper. Yeah, I said. Ellen checked her phone, stood up from the bed, and typed while talking. The movie is excellent, but nobody gives a shit about great movies with Latin titles and neither robots nor explosions. You realize I work for the studio, right? Like, I don't work for you. I exist to do what is good for the movie so that the movie will have its best possible life. And most of the time, this aligns with your interests, but not all the time. Like, if I were a lawyer, I wouldn't be your lawyer. You understand that, right? I do. Ellen tossed me her phone and said, "You see a pattern there?" It was Juniper's Instagram. A lot of pictures of her and me. Juniper transparently and authentically likes you, Ellen explained, and you transparently and authentically like Juniper, and this transparent and authentic mutual admiration should be regularly reinforced to your followers, which Juniper has been doing magnificently. Well, isn't it Katie, the publicist, doing the actual posting? Another thing you need to understand is that Katie is Juniper and that I am you, at least for the next 22 days. The bed at the Hotel Bel Air was the nicest bed I'd ever laid on. I started wondering how many nights I could stay there consecutively before I ran out of money. I'd never had a lot of money, but I'd gotten almost $100,000 for the movie, and I hadn't spent any of it. I had enough from being in 2 Lowe's commercials to cover the rent in the apartment where I supposedly lived. How much do you think this room costs a night? I asked Ellen. Are you listening? She said. Yeah, sorry, what? Kai, the test scores for this movie are insane. You know what test scores are? I nodded, even though I didn't really. 92% top 2 boxes, 92%. So the scores are amazing, but the tracking is shit. Nobody knows this movie is coming out. Nobody knows what it's called because it's got a Latin name. People are tired of war, which makes them tired of movies about war. You can't possibly know how rare this is, how lucky you are to get a first movie that is pure gold and could be in the awards hunt and could make you the new Ansel or Timothy, but we have to get people to see the movie. Are you saying that I should give you my Instagram password? Also Twitter, she said. You aren't dating anyone, are you? Not really. No. Wait, what? I said. If you're not really dating someone, then no, you're not dating anyone. Yes, you're single. No, you're not in a relationship. Right, yeah. I'm not in a relationship. I wasn't either. There was this girl in New York I'd been out with a few times, and she was nice. She was a student at Columbia studying anthropology. I'm not sure why I just wrote that she was nice. She was smart and interesting and attractive, but she was not nice. On our last date, in fact, she had called me fascinatingly undereducated, which stung because I am undereducated and I feel it all the time. Everyone knew more than me about everything, about wine and about strains of weed and about Russian literature and about French grammar. The reason I don't talk much is because I'm so stupid. I'm always behind in every conversation, especially in LA, where people talk as if the words are on fire and only where people talk as if the world were on fire and only their yammering can put it out. Kai, your socials. Yes? Are you literally not hearing the words I'm saying? I literally was not hearing the words she was saying. We've got your Insta and Twitter verified. Is this Facebook yours? She handed me her phone. I don't have a Facebook. Good thing we didn't get that one verified then. We'll get you a Facebook. You won't have to think about it. Listen, your socials are great. We just need to up the PPD a bit. I can post for you with your approval, of course. PPD, post per day. Listen, I know it's a lot, but when you see the movie tonight, you'll understand. It's a special film and you're a revelation in it, but we're not going to have $50 million to spend on ads, so we're going to be heavily reliant on social. Okay, I said. What's your Instapass? She asked. I gave it to her, and my Twitter too. She stood up, rubbed my hair like I was a little kid, and said, I'll let you get ready. I'm so excited for you. While I was in the shower, Agent Bob called me and left a voicemail. I listened to it on speaker while lying in a Hotel Bel Air robe on the Hotel Bel Air bed. That bed was so nice it made me almost feel like I was weightless, like I wasn't even in a body. Kai, it's Bob. I know young people don't listen to their voicemails, but I got to tell you, kid, I'm so proud of you and what you've achieved and so excited for your future. I got a call from the head of the studio this morning, from the head of Paramount itself, and he said he saw the movie and you're a revelation. That's what he said, a revelation. Don't fire me when you blow up, okay? I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. We'll talk more on the lot tonight. I'm setting up a lunch with Brian. He wants to talk to you about Gods of Andromeda, wants to test you on Friday. They just read Juniper for the lead. I hear she smashed it. Wouldn't that be great for you and her to work again? Enjoy this, Kai. This is as good as it gets. You are going to absolutely explode. That's the end of that chapter. Some people don't have audio. Well, that's not fun. Okay, I'll keep going. Some people do have audio, so that's good. It's not. All right, this is the next chapter. You see how much further I can realistically go, because I can do this and then I can do that. Can I get through the movie? I mean, arguably, it goes on a little too long before they see the movie, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I can. Maybe I can. I'm gonna try to get. You know what? I'll just keep reading, and if you don't want to listen, you're not obligated to. So that's okay. It's okay if you have to go somewhere. This is it. This is helpful for me. Okay. This is chapter 4. It's not really hot in LA, even though the sun is always shining. The air feels like nothing on your skin. Los Angeles is the opposite of weather. I went down 3 elevators, got lost in the winding paths of the Hotel Bel Air, and eventually found the entrance where the cars come and go. Several black SUVs were lined up, windows tinted. I wondered if they were full or empty. I was wearing black jeans and a Bouncing Souls t-shirt. Over by the valet stand, an old guy was smoking a cigarette. He was a famous actor, but I couldn't quite place his face or remember his name. William something. One of those guys who's been in 100 movies, but you don't really notice him. I wished I could just watch the movie alone in my hotel or something. Ellen appeared and said, Thanks for dressing up, Kai. Wait, was I supposed to? I can You're fine. It's on brand. We gotta go. She told the valet her last name and he pointed at one of the SUVs. And as we approached, Al got out of the car and opened the door for us. Hello again, I said. Kai, he said, nodding and ushering me into the SUV. Al told us it would be 15 minutes to the Paramount lot, so I got out my phone. I'd regrammed Juniper's picture of the plane, or Ellen had anyway, and I scrolled through the comments. Lots of hearts and smiles, lots of strangers saying one or both of us were beautiful. The best comment was, imagine being that plane and having Kai Laramie inside of you. I read it to Ellen, and she laughed and said, You want to know the best part of that comment, Kai? I wrote it. Fangirl of literally everything is one of my burner accounts. Despite not existing, I have 12,000 followers over there. I'm glad you like my work. Some actual friends had also commented. One of my New York roommates, Natalie, wrote, "When did you become a Jenner sister? Congrats," with champagne poppers. I texted Natalie, "I am no longer in control of my Instagram. It is now the property of Paramount Studios." But she didn't immediately reply, so I texted Juniper. "Hi." "Hi," she wrote back. "You nervous?" "I'm something," I wrote. She didn't reply. I asked Ellen how many fake accounts she had. Personally, 4, but we have people who help with that stuff. My phone buzzed. Juniper. "Sorry, I was just puking." "Really?" "I always puke. I hate it. Katie says press is going to be there." "Really?" "Yeah, and Catherine and maybe Keanu." Catherine was the director. "Now I'm going to puke," I wrote. Ellen looked up from her phone and said, "Apparently there's going to be a bit of press there. You don't need to talk to anybody except to say hello, but if you do accidentally end up saying more than hello to anyone, we're going to practice some adjectives." "Adjectives?" "Yeah, adjectives, Kai. We'll save the proper media training for another day, but I assume you attended 4th grade and remember adjectives. When press asks you about the movie or the cast or the people, you use adjectives. Juniper, for instance, is dreamy." Juniper isn't dreamy. It was a goddamn example. I could feel her nerves, and that made me feel mine. "Okay, you tell me the adjectives, and I'll tell you if they're good adjectives." Keanu. "What?" "Keanu, adjectives. Kind, smart, hurt, distant." Hurt and distant are bad. Loving, supportive, mentor. Mentor is not an adjective, but it's good. I like it. Great. Okay, Catherine. Terrifying. Terrifying is bad, Kai. Brilliant, bold, confident? Yes. Dedicated? Passionate? I love it. All right, now Juniper. Is really bad. I mean, I don't really know Juniper. We were on set together for a week. I liked her. Ellen exhaled through clenched teeth. Present tense, Kai. She is not deceased. You like her. I like her. Juniper is thoughtful, careful. Careful is not great. Caring is great, Ellen said. But I don't mean caring. I mean careful. Ellen closed her eyes. What else? Worried? A slight shake of her head. Worried is terrible. Articulate? No, she said. Ellen was pressing her thumb and forefinger to her eyes now. She makes space for people? That is not an adjective. Think of an adjective. Considerate. Meh. Beautiful. Oh, I like beautiful, she said. I laughed. I bet you do. But you don't say that. You show it with your eyes, right? You're an actor. So you say brilliant, hardworking, and hilarious, and the beautiful you show, don't tell. I didn't think Juniper was brilliant, hardworking, or hilarious. I thought she was careful, worried, and considerate. We turned into the Paramount lot, and the guard waved Al past. I could see Juniper and Katie the publicist and Janet the acquisition specialist standing together in the parking lot talking to Catherine, the director. 3 adjectives about everyone, Ellen said. Flattering but particular. Then you expand. Keanu is kind, smart, and supportive. Insert story here about his kindness and so on. Yeah? Yeah, I said. The car had stopped. Al hustled out of the driver's seat so he could come around and open my door. Even though I knew how to open a car door, I waited for him and let him do it. Kai, my love, Catherine said as I got out of the car. She kissed me on both cheeks. Something smelled like coconut oil, her face or her lip gloss. I can't wait for you to see our movie. She hugged me, and I closed my eyes because I always do when I hug someone. But Catherine held on for so long that eventually I opened my eyes, and through Catherine's ash blonde hair, I could see Juniper, her face drained of color. She mouthed something to me, and it took me a second to translate it. What she said was this: "I'm gonna barf." And then she did, onto the base of a very tall palm tree. We all walked together, with Studio Todd and Ellen leading. Catherine asked me how I was, and I said good, and she asked me if I was still in New York, and I said yes, even though I wasn't sure if I was still in New York. Catherine was so good at name dropping that I couldn't even tell you how she turned the conversation to Nicki Minaj's new music video, which she had directed, and how the night before she'd been at Nicki's house for a party that went very late, and now she was hungover, hence the sunglasses. You know that I'm not a sunglasses person, she said, although I didn't know that. Have you tried hangover IVs? Todd asked, and Catherine said no, she was afraid of needles, and Todd said he swore by them. that a nurse will come to your house with a bag of saline and put the IV in, and 30 minutes later you'll feel ready for a run no matter how much you drank. And Catherine said she'd keep it under advisement. We were walking down a fake block of New York with fake shop windows. Everything on the lot felt slightly smaller than reality. The streets were narrow, the Spanish-style buildings too close to the sidewalk. It felt a little like you were walking inside a movie, which I guess is the point. We came to a sidewalk, and I could see a miniature marquee jutting out from a stucco wall that said, "Now showing Pro Patria Mori," which was cool. I walked over to Juniper, who was chewing what seemed to be several pieces of gum and looking at her platform sneakers, her face ashen. "Look at the marquee," I said, and she smiled a little. "You okay?" I asked. I think in the I and she answered, "I think the enjoyment sector of my brain might be dysfunctional. Or maybe this isn't just very enjoyable," I said. "I'm just not prepared for the press," she said. "Katie didn't explain that to me, and so I haven't really gone through the talking points. I don't have answers for even the basic questions. Like, I don't know what I want people to take away from the film. Hope, I guess, but that sounds idiotic. Maybe that the movie explores how human perseverance isn't naive, but is really the glory of our species. But then that sounds a bit grandiose, you know? I hope that people will be grateful to our veterans. No, that's too political. What do you hope people take away from it?" "I don't really go to movies like this. I don't know why people watch sad movies," I said. "Well," Juniper said, "that is certainly worse than my answers." Studio Todd's shadow arrived at the bench just before he did, and he said, "The movie is a celebration of the human spirit and the power of love." And then Katie, the publicist, was there with us saying, "Jesus Christ, Todd, do you write greeting cards for a living? We want people to leave the theater thinking, that Juniper Stallworth sure as shit deserves an Oscar." "Can I get a little air?" Juniper said, and everybody took a few steps back. I started to stand up off the bench, but she grabbed my wrist and said, "Not you. Can you stay?" And I said, "Of course." And she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry if my breath smells like puke." And I said, "It doesn't," even though it did a little bit. And she said, "Can we do this together? This? All of this? Like all of it together, just not alone? Can we like do the press and the, I don't know, I like you, Kai, you make me feel less like barfing. Thanks. Can we do this together?" And I said, "Of course." When I looked up, I saw that Ellen and Katie were both taking pictures of us. Catherine came and sat down between us then. She put an arm around Jupiter and started half whispering to her, "Listen, I know you're nervous, but they flew you out here on the Paramount plane because they like this movie. If they didn't, you'd be sitting in seat 23D on Delta, trust me." She stood up then. Catherine is a large woman, tall and always in heels. I know the word statuesque means something particular, but Catherine is actually statuesque. As we walked into the theater down a long, dimly lit hallway, Catherine just kept talking to us. "I hear Brian wants both of you for Gods of Andromeda. He's a genius. I love him, an actual genius. I told him you're both amazing, and he had to hire you. You're both about to just explode. You know that he doesn't have an assistant? He never has. He answers his own phone. Isn't that wonderful? The best always have time for everyone. Speaking of the best," she said. And as we turned into the theater, there was Keanu. He was wearing tight jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and a light jacket. People were surrounding him in an awkward half circle, but they parted when he stepped toward Catherine and hugged her. "How are you?" Catherine said. "I haven't seen you since Kim's wedding." "I've barely seen myself since Kim's wedding," he answered. Then he saw us and hugged us together and told us he missed us. He smelled like cigarette smoke. He'd chewed Nicorette the whole time we were in Louisiana, but without ever quite quitting. He told me that once, he told me during one all-night shoot, "The thing no one ever tells you about smoking is how great it is, the jolt of giving into it. I need a cigarette, so I have one. Needing a cigarette is the only problem in my life I know how to solve." And so then I'd asked him for a cigarette, and he'd laughed so hard before saying, "No way, kid." "These are my kids," Keanu said to the people gathered about. "They're so brilliant. I can't wait for you to see them in this film." The theater was small, maybe 25 seats. Katie, the publicist, Ellen, and Studio Todd made introductions. "This is Caitlin, the editor of the movie. This is Jill from The New Yorker. This is Tyrell from The Wall Street Journal. This is Mark from Entertainment Weekly." Studio Todd walked Juniper and I to a row of seats in front of the press, and I sat down next to Juniper. Keanu sat a few seats over, and then everybody else filed in behind us. The already dim lights grew fainter. I thought about the first time I met Keanu. The producers of the movie, Jenny and Lon, were in a van with me, and Lon was talking nonstop about how excited he was, how absolutely excited. Lon was always absolutely everything, absolutely sure the movie would succeed, absolutely overjoyed to tell me I'd been cast, absolutely positive we did not need more coverage of that shot. The van stopped, and I got out at last. The van stopped, and I got out last, and Keanu was standing there looking absolutely like Keanu Reeves. And he said, "Hey, kid," and then asked, "You a hugger?" And I hugged him around his waist, and he put one arm around me, and he said, "I used to be 19." He said it like being 19 was a debilitating illness you only sometimes survived, which has been more or less my experience. Hopefully the audio didn't go out midway through that part. It doesn't look like it did. Okay. Um, all right, I'm going to keep reading. When the Paramount logo with that looming mountain in the background filled the screen, I felt this weird surge inside of me, something like happiness, but not quite. Juniper squeezed my hand when my name appeared in pale blue out of the darkness, and then for a second we were holding hands, but only for a second. I wondered if Katie, the publicist, had photographed that, or nudged the reporter from the Wall Street Journal or something. In the movie's opening scene, Keanu and I are playing a video game together, and Catherine kept wanting me to move my body and arms with the controller, like I was trying to move the person inside the game by moving my own body. But I didn't want to do it. I felt like my character was not the sort of person to make unnecessary movements of any kind. And in general, I wanted to be very still so there would be a big shift toward the end of the movie when he gets into a fight with his dad and is flailing everywhere. But Catherine really liked this idea of me trying to move my arms to move the person inside the game. So I was trying to do it, but it felt awkward. And also, it was only our second day on set, and I felt like the crew and producers were getting mad at me. After a few takes, Catherine told everyone to take 10 and brought me into this other room in the house where we were shooting. It was a kid's bedroom, and the crew had all kinds of steel rigging there, but we managed to find a corner of this twin bed to sit on, and she said, "5 slow breaths, Kai, in and out, nice and deep." I was looking at some kid's New Orleans Saints poster, wondering if he was psyched or pissed that his room was being used by a Hollywood studio, and I took 5 slow breaths in time with hers. Here's a story Bradley Cooper told me once. He's such a philosopher. He said, when a human has a fight or flight response, they often get stuck between fight or flight. The feeling is so new, so powerful, so overwhelming that they just stand there. It's not the decision that kills them, Kai. It's being between decisions. Yeah? Yeah, I said. It's like my favorite Onion headline, Squirrel's Last Moments Frantic, Indecisive. But today, my lovely squirrel, you will dart this way and that way, and you will survive. Catherine stood up, and I followed her. I sat down next to Keanu, and the crew returned the cameras and lights. The boom guy picked up the mic, camera speeding, sound speeding. Catherine said, "Fight, action." And I fought with the controller, moving my body in concert with my avatar on the screen. She let the scene run a little long until Keanu and I were improvising jokes, and then she called cut. "Great, we go again. Now flight, Kai, flight." And when everything was reset, she said action again, and I played the scene like I wanted to. Minimal movement, economy and everything, tight, close, interior. And when we were through the lines, she said, "Cut, beautiful, let's move on." Catherine used her version in the movie, of course, me moving the controller ridiculously all around. It was a good scene, though. I found it hard to watch the parts of the movie I was in because I couldn't stop thinking about my face and my voice and how I sounded like an idiot. There's a meathead jockness to my voice that I hate, something in the way I say the words themselves. I'm not even a good athlete. I just sound like one. But the stuff with Keanu and Juniper was incredible. Your heart really broke for her, this poor kid stuck with a shitty life and a dead father. And you could feel both the girl's rawness and her desire to conceal it. It made me think about how the most cynical people tend to be the most vulnerable, and they can't afford to risk sincerity. The Juniper who was sitting next to me scribbled notes constantly into a tiny notebook. I kept looking down to try to see them, but it was too dark. I hadn't even thought to bring a pen and paper. Typical. I kept trying to figure out if the movie was good, But during my scenes, I could only think about what was happening on the days we shot. Like, I remember the day Keanu invited me to his trailer to play a motorcycle racing simulator someone had sent him. And I remembered the wet heat walking along the levee with him and how we kept having to wait for planes to pass in order to get the audio right, and Lon shouting from behind the video monitors, "These goddamn planes have cost me $12,000 today. Do you know what $12,000 will buy?" During the scene where my dad and I drink beer together, I remembered laughing with Keanu about the ridiculousness of the fake beer labels. Keanu offered to pay the props master whatever it cost to get some actual Stella on set. And then I made fun of Keanu for liking shitty beer. And then Keanu said, "Can you even drink?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I can." And then he tilted his head way back and looked up at the ceiling while he laughed, like God had made the joke. I couldn't get my head into the actual movie at all, really, until the last 20 minutes or so, the part that Juniper and Keanu and I were all in together. It got so gut-wrenching that I forgot about what had really happened and who Juniper and Keanu really were, and even who I really was. There's a scene near the end with Juniper and me where she totally falls apart and is sobbing and screaming into me, which had been intense to film, but somehow it was much more intense to watch. I just felt so bad for everyone. The movie is really about what you owe the people you love and how impossible it is to pay all those debts. And the whole thing just ripped me open until I started crying. I glanced over at Juniper, and she was dabbing her eyes, but I didn't see any tears, actually. She looked really pretty, the light of the movie golden gray on her face. By the time the movie ended, I was really crying. I wasn't crying about the movie even. I was crying because the kids in the movie were so fragile, and because everything fragile faces the same fate eventually. All right, I think I'm going to read one more chapter if I can, and then I don't know. I kind of want to read. Let's see. And this is where it starts to get real loose. Like, I don't know if there's a chapter break for like 20 pages. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this is where it starts to get like we don't know what time it is kind of problems. But I think I still want to read this. So we're starting to enter the place where like it's always Wednesday afternoon, and like I haven't yet calibrated in my mind the changing of time and everything. So just full disclosure. Some people behind us clapped during the credits, but I couldn't really tell if they were studio people or the journalists. The lights came up a little, and I was having a hard time stopping crying. Tyrell from the Wall Street Journal walked up to me with Katie, the publicist. He asked if I was all right. I nodded and smiled. I didn't want to seem like the kind of person who cries at their own movie, but I just couldn't recover from it. "I don't know why I'm crying," I said. "I mean, I knew what was going to happen." Tyrell laughed and then said, "You must have given a lot of yourself to that performance." I shrugged. "Yeah, thanks. Juniper's great in it, isn't she?" "For sure, but you're a revelation. Congratulations, Kai." Catherine emerged from somewhere behind me, grabbed me around the waist, and said, "What'd you think?" "I think it's good," I said. "The end really got me." "It's that MIA song," Catherine said. "I heard it at one of Casey's famous pool parties, and it completely changed the entire vibe of the moment. This fun, ridiculous, over-the-top pool party was suddenly, like, fraught. Everyone looked vulnerable, and I found Casey, and I asked him what the song was. It just still rips my heart in half. Affleck. Casey Affleck." I might have to cut that. That's such an obvious, like, Hollywood thing. It's funny. It's funny, but I don't know how funny the moment is. But it is such a Hollywood thing that like people will be telling you a completely sincere thing and they'll finish it and then they'll like not be able to live with the fact that they didn't fully drop the name and then they'll say Affleck, Casey Affleck. Whatever, I'll keep it for now. It still rips my heart in two. Affleck, Casey Affleck. No, I can't keep it. It's too much. Whatever. I'm not deleting it now, but it is too much. It's one of those things that's definitely not gonna make it. In the next like 3 years of revising this, that'll be cut at some point, but not today. All of us walked out of the theater together. The light outside was squintingly bright. The producers, Lon and Jenny, were sitting in a golf cart right outside the screening room, and Jenny jumped up, hugged Catherine, and asked Juniper, "Well?" "It's very good," Juniper said. I do have some notes, but we can discuss later. Let's grab a bite, Jen said. Nothing's locked, Lon added as he got out of the golf cart. Absolutely want to hear your notes. Did they tell you about the test scores? Lon came over and gave me a big hug and started to speak, but then he spotted Keanu over my shoulder and headed toward him. I reached into my pocket for my phone and saw that I had a text from Agent Bob. Head of studio wants you to do the junket, including international. This is huge, Kai. Working on getting you a wardrobe now. Do you have a favorite designer? Call me. Ellen grabbed and turned me toward the New Yorker person who asked what I thought of the movie. I think I liked it. I've never really... Ellen tugged on my arm and said, "One moment," and then pulled me aside and mumbled, "You don't think you liked it, Kai." "I'm quite certain I liked it," I said, turning back to the New Yorker and correcting myself, and the New Yorker laughed. "May God keep you innocent and honest," the New Yorker said, and then added, "How did it feel watching yourself?" I paused. "Exposed," I said. Ellen winced. "I can imagine," the New Yorker said. "Most young actors mimic. They don't express fear or the terror of helplessness. They perform them. A kid's scream in a horror movie almost always says more about what movies they've seen than what fears they've known. But when you screamed at your father, I mean, even now, I'm saying it as if it was real. But in a way, it was real, wasn't it?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Ellen said, "Obviously, Jill would like to profile you and knows precisely the way to an author's heart. Jill, we'll be in touch. I've got to get Kai onto this golf cart for a producer meeting." I was ushered onto the back of the golf cart, which in the end fit only Lon, Jen, Juniper, and me. I was sitting backwards, so I watched myself pull away from Keanu, Ellen, the press. Lon said, "We've now got release dates in 18 territories. 18. It's got a Latin title and 18 international releases. Last night, Jen says that dreams are just the brain's version of waste expulsion, but last night I dreamt I was standing on the roof of my house and a B-52 bomber plane flew overhead and I thought I was in a war zone, but then the bomb doors opened and money flew from the sky and fluttered down all around me from absolutely every country on earth. Dollars, euros, reals, pesos, pounds. I have seen our future friends and it is multinational." "Dreams are just the brain's version of waste expulsion," Jen said. "Juniper has some notes, I think." "Right, yeah, let's talk them over. Let's get a bite. We got a reservation. I think Keanu can join, but I don't think Keanu can join, but Catherine might stop by. Have we talked about the junket?" "The junket?" I asked. "The junket. Obviously one in New York and LA at the end of next week, as I'm sure you've discussed with your teams, but with so much international buzz, we're trying to capitalize. It's all happening quickly, but you want to keep your schedules minimal between here and the premiere because Europe looks like a yes, Brazil looks like a maybe. Kai, do you have a favorite designer? Juniper, you have someone, yes?" "Rodart." "Kai, do you have any more notes or is it just me?" Juniper asked. "Wait, when is the premiere?" I asked. "The premiere is Wednesday the 4th, Juniper said. "Of October?" "Of November, Kai. Does Ellen not update your calendar? Did you like the MIA song at the end?" she asked. We were getting off the golf cart now and into an SUV. "Yes?" I ventured as I crawled into the way back. Juniper joined me back there and said, "Really? I mean, I'm not a music supervisor," I said. "Indeed," Juniper said. "Indeed you are not. Nor for that matter is Catherine. Jen, did you like the MIA song at the end?" "We already paid for it," Jen answered. "But do you like it?" "She likes it. We like it," Lon said. "The song isn't changing. Great song. MIA plays great internationally. Got to think about Brazil and the UK now, Juniper. MIA is in the sweet spot, right? For a comeback, strong international presence. Right, but the song itself has been purchased," Jen finished. "Well," said Juniper. "Yes, I see. Shall we begin discussing notes?" "I feel like we already have," Jen answered. Juniper pulled out her black leather-bound notebook. "In the first scene between Malcolm and I believe there's a take in which I say axe murderer with more emphasis on the axe, which I think would play better. I understand that Catherine didn't use it because my coverage was better in the axey take that she used, but I understand that choice, but I wonder whether we can be on Keanu when I say the axey or axe murderer and clock his reaction and then cut back to me," she said, and then continued to talk like that about almost every single shot in the film. Juniper had noticed 1,000 things that I hadn't noticed, had thought about 1,000,000 angles I hadn't considered. She watched movies every night the way that athletes watch film of old games. And while I'm sure that Lon and Jen found that 90 minutes excruciating, I was just astounded. How could someone notice so much, care so much? I can't remember even 1% of what she said, but like at one point she questioned the color correction of a scene that takes place in my bedroom because it made the windows look dark, when as she understood it, the point of the cinematography in that scene was that all the light was coming from outside because the house itself had become what she called a well of metaphorical darkness. They let her talk. Jen took notes. I ate a quinoa bowl with grilled vegetables. Juniper had, I don't say what she had. What did she have? Oh, some kind of salad. How about like a niçoise salad and a lot of water? And then as Lon placed a very sturdy-looking Amex card on top of the bill, he said, Juniper, I love you, and you're going to make a great director someday, but you are not directing this film. I'm not trying to direct it. We will absolutely pass along a version of all of this to Catherine, Lon said. Absolutely 100%. But listen, the movie is 92% top two boxes as is. Can it be better? Sure, Citizen Kane could be better, but 92% top two boxes? I've been doing this a long time. He's been doing this a very long time, Jen added. And this is only the second movie I've ever had that was over 90% top two boxes. The other one was Moulin Rouge, Jen said. The studio shit the bed on an awards campaign and it still won 4 Oscars. Should have won Best Picture, Jen said. Screwed out of it, but that's the Academy. I'm not going to tell Catherine to recut the entire film when it's 92% top two boxes, Lon said. At least the cemetery scene, Juniper said. And listen, we're going to celebrate tonight. We'll come to you. The Hotel Bel Air has a great bar. Until then, maybe just get some rest. I know it's hard to see yourself up there on the screen. I know this is a stressful process. It's stressful for me too. I'm not stressed, Juniper said. I just want to make the movie better, and we want to make it better too, Lon said, and your notes will make it better. We will absolutely pass along a version of this to Catherine. These are great notes, very helpful. But we also want to manage your expectations, Lon said. The movie is basically locked, Jen said. And we all need to be advocates for it. I mean, it's in everyone's best interest to love the movie. We're all on the same team here, Jen added. Yeah, Juniper said. Yeah, no, right. I get it. Yeah, so like what time is it? I don't know. I don't know. I'll read this. I'll read this and then I'll stop. Because I think this ends. Yeah, I'll read this because it kind of closes out this part. Juniper was meeting up with a friend, so I decided to walk back to the hotel by myself. It was a couple miles, but I didn't mind. Lon told me that no one in Los Angeles walks anywhere, that I would be treated as a suspicious character. He kept patting me on the back as we left lunch, telling me how to feel. You should be really proud, he said. You should be so pleased with your performance. Walking down the abandoned sidewalk of a busy 4-lane road, I didn't actually feel much of anything. I often feel kind of empty, not necessarily in a bad way, just like my body is uninhabited. It was windy, but the air that blew in the trees seemed not to have a temperature really, which only increased the weird feeling that my body wasn't actually there, or I wasn't in it. I was listening to Gods of Andromeda, which was a big bestseller. I'm a slow reader because I have dyslexia, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. The story was very good. It was set on a small planet in the Andromeda galaxy that only had one landmass, and the people who lived there had escaped Earth millennia before and now had all these competing civilizations, but there was a ban on war and on weapons of any kind, so the civilizations mostly lived peacefully together. But now one of the civilizations was threatening war because it felt oppressed. Our heroes called themselves Andromedars, and the guy I was supposed to play was the queen's brother, who was the civilization's chief negotiator. And I carried this golden pen with me everywhere called the Peace Pen, which eventually, when we go to war, gets melted into the golden handle of my new sword. The queen was really badass in it, though, and I could see how Juniper would be perfect for it. The other thing about this that I don't have here in all of this exposition is that in the worlds of Gods of Andromeda, people only live to be like 30. So like you're an adult when you're like an adult when you're 23. That's like one of the shticks of the book that doesn't exist. When I started working at the last restaurant I'd been at, the shorthand of it all had gotten me really confused at first. CHB meant chicken breast, not cheeseburger, which was BRGCH, unless they wanted it with American cheese, in which case it was BRGAM. But then eventually it all feels normal, as if a cheeseburger is a BRGCH. And I was hoping that by listening to World of Warcraft people talk about gods of Andromeda and everything, I would sound informed if I got called in for those chemistry reads. I've been walking for a while when a call beeped in. Agent Bob. Christ, Kai, I've been trying to get a hold of you for 10 hours. You have to answer your phone, okay? This generation and their phones, you're fucking obsessed with them, but you never use them. How are you? Good? How's the movie? I think it's good. Juniper has some concerns. Sure, sure. Well, I've seen it, and let me tell you, kid, there's nothing to be concerned about. It's amazing. And I've been on the phone all morning about you. I've got agents and producers all over town tripping over each other to ask after your availability. You're exploding. Good? Good. It's fucking great. We're gonna have some choices. But can I just remind you of something? I hope this doesn't seem rude, kid, but I just want to remind you that I believed in you from day one. Anyone calls you, you let them know, okay? I'm sure CIA will be circling you like the goddamn vultures they are, but the great thing about us is that we can work with anyone. You got me? CIA is an incest factory. They don't make the best movies they can make. They make the best CAA movies they can make. You got me? I'm not going to fire you, Bob. Great, I know that. You're a loyal kid. Listen, Brian wants to have breakfast with you tomorrow. He'll come to your hotel. Brian coming to you. Can you believe it? 9:30. Don't be late. Zoe and I will catch up with you afterwards. This Gods of Andromeda thing, it could be huge. Paramount's all in for it. 46 shoot days starts in December. If breakfast goes well, they'll do a test deal just based on your self-tape. That's how much they love you for the brother. What's his name, Zoe? Gavinth, Zoe said. She was Bob's assistant. I guess assistants usually listen in on calls, but Bob was always calling attention to the fact that his assistant was listening in on calls. I liked Zoe. I liked Zoe more than Bob. Gavinth, Christ. The thing about a book is that you can't change the shitty names in it or the book fans go crazy. Anyway, Kai, test deal and then chemistry reads next week. You like Juniper, right? I hear she's a shoo-in. Just don't get nervous. Brian's smart, but he's not any smarter than you. And maybe you don't even want to do a sword swinger set in space. We'll see how the breakfast goes. You got to ask yourself what kind of career you want. You want to be Keanu? You want to be Bradley Cooper? Or hell, I don't know, maybe you want to be Paul Giamatti. That guy's got a good life. Let me tell you, famous enough to fuck who he wants, but he can still go to the grocery store. Can I say that, Zoe? I heard the end of Zoe's sigh as she clicked in and said, yeah, probably best not to, Bob. This new Hollywood kid, it's crazy. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Can I still quote T.S. Eliot, Zoe? Another small sigh. Yes, Bob, you can still quote T.S. Eliot. Great. Gods of Andromeda's 46 shoot days in December will be able to get you a good deal. And when I talked to the producers this morning, Dylan, great guy, you'll love him. He said they were beefing up the role a little, making it fifth lead. So see how Breakfast with Brian goes, then we'll put together a test deal, and then we'll see what we can get. Okay, I said. And then after a second, so what's going to happen with Pro Patria Mori? What do you mean? I mean, like, what's going to happen with the movie? Everyone keeps saying that it's really good, but I don't know what that means. It means they're going to try to get Keanu and Catherine invited to the Oscars is what it means. I love the movie, okay? It's a great movie. But who wants to see a sad movie with a Latin title about two miserable kids and their fucked up dad? This is America, Kai. Americans paid $200 million to see Meet the Fockers. We're not a nation of taste or sophistication. Even with the awards, we're not talking about Nobel Prizes here. You know what got nominated for an Oscar? Fucking Boss Baby, kid. You see Boss Baby? No. If you've ever seen a dog vomit its body weight after eating chocolate, you've seen Boss Baby. Nobody has taste anymore. Maybe they never did. You want my advice? The best time to make a deal is before anybody knows how big your movie is actually going to be. Maybe I'm wrong and you'll be at the Oscars in 4 months, but the world's full of great movies that nobody watched and great actors nobody hires. Can I still talk about dog vomit, Zoe? Please stop doing that, I said. Agreed, added Zoe. Got it. Sorry, kid. I'm a dinosaur, but I'm a dinosaur that's going to get you a hell of a deal for Gods of Andromeda. For Gods of Androgyny. We'll see you for breakfast. 9:30 at your hotel work? Andromeda, Zoe muttered. See you in the morning, I said. I kept walking. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't. That might be a little like broad in its I may need to tone that down a little and like rework it a little bit, but there are a lot of agents in Hollywood who are like that and who like make jokes, think it's like funny to like make jokes about how like politically correct they are now when they are still hugely offensive. But I don't know. Maybe it might read as a little shticky. I don't know. But it's just like something that I've known. Not my agent, who's a wonderful, wonderful person, but a lot of agents. All right. Anyway, I kept walking. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't know who. I tried my dad, but he didn't answer. As I walked, I scrolled through my texts. I had a lot I hadn't answered, but I didn't want to respond to any. The thought of responding to anyone made the ache in my stomach worse, and it was already pretty bad. I tried to go back to having an empty mind and listening to Gods of Andromeda, but I kept thinking about Bob and Lon and Ellen, the movie, and what I should do next, and Keanu surrounded by all those reporters who were 2 or 3 steps further from him than you'd usually stand in conversation because he had some kind of energy that kept them away. And I wondered if that energy came from him or from the reporters, and I wondered if I wanted that. The sidewalk had ended, and I was walking on the street now past huge houses with perfect lawns, and I was getting pretty nervous. Part of me wanted to call my dad or my brother. He just did call his dad. Part of me wanted to uh, part part of part of me wanted to call one of my roommates or a friend, but they'd only ask me if the movie was good, and I didn't know if it was good. I knew it was sad. I knew there was something true about it, but good? I've never really known what makes art good because I've never really been sure what the point of art is. My drama teacher said that art existed to delight and instruct. I didn't feel delighted or instructed by Pro Patria Mori, but neither did I feel as much watching a Pinter play or whatever. Walking on the densely woven grass of those rich people's yards on the way back to the Hotel Bel Air, I couldn't really remember why I'd wanted to be an actor, except that I was good at it. It was getting toward dusk. Magic hour, Catherine had called it on the shot list, when the outside light gets angular and expensive houses look more expensive and shitty ones look shittier. But there were no shitty houses in this neighborhood. The road was climbing up the hill to the Hotel Bel Air, and like that moth in Studio Todd's joke, I was climbing along with it. Yeah, that petered out for me a little bit. I like that last chapter the least, but you know, that's I learn a lot from reading out loud, so I appreciate your forbearance in listening and talking while I was reading. I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's like that's the beginning of the story that I'm working on. But actually, I guess not the beginning because it's like that's like 30 pages in, so that's still early. I've got a long way to go. I have not. I have not. It can and like it gets, as is always the case with these things, it gets sketchier as it goes. Because I have more problems that I've introduced that I have not solved. If you, in a lot of ways, you spend like the first half of the story trying to introduce a bunch of problems that you spend the second half of the story trying to solve. So the first half is always easier and more fun, at least for somebody like me who sucks at plots. Yeah. So, I have no idea if I'm going to end up using real names, but it's legal to use real names as long as you're not. It's legal, but a little complicated. I'm not worried about the legality of it. I'm worried about the ethics of it. I don't really want to use someone's name who doesn't want their name used, So that there's a good chance that'll change, but I don't have to call him Keanu for everyone to know that he's Keanu. um, so yeah. So that's the yeah. So that's anyway. So that's the story that I've been working on in the background. I want to answer some of your questions. William asks, "Do you always work with Julie Strauss Gable or different editors?" I've only this is very unusual. Almost no writers can have this experience, but Julie has been my editor since before my first book was published, and I would like her to be my editor for as long as I am writing. I hope that happens. The reason it doesn't happen, even when there's really good relationships between editors and authors, is that editors or authors leave publishing houses. Like Julie has been at Dutton for 20 years. That's very rare, and it's very rare that an author would be at the same publisher for 20 years. But I've had all of my books published at Penguin, and I would love to have that be true for my entire career. Like this is an inexact analogy, but I have great admiration for soccer players who spend their entire careers at one club. And yeah, I know that it's a corporation and that it exists to make a profit, but my relationship with Julie is incredibly important to me. I can't imagine publishing without Julie. And yeah, so but that's a long way off. I mean, there's a very good chance this will never be finished, and will never come out. And if it does ever come out, it will come out in a very, 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 very long time. Yeah. So Sarah says, I missed the news from AFC Wimbledon with this week's old episode of Dear Hank and John. Any updates? Well, Wimbledon have played their first game of the League One season, and they tied, which would have been good, except that they were probably playing the only team in League One definitely worse than them. So it's, there's a long time to go. There's a long time. We still got 45 games left in the season. So I'm mostly concerned with whether or not the season happens. Do you have the discussion questions at the end of your books in mind while you're writing? No. And I write. Sometimes Julie writes that stuff. Sometimes I write it. But when I write it, I'm always like. I mean, I have the themes in mind. I know what I want to talk about. Like, I know some of the images I want to use. Like, in fact, you can see there that like I overuse images that I want to use. Like I overuse the word revelation, and I overuse the image of an actor being about to absolutely explode, because like I know in my mind I want to use those images and like use that idea that like all these people are celebrating the fact that these kids are about to blow up. And from the kid's perspective, there's a part of you that's excited to blow up, and there's a part of you that's like, that doesn't sound entirely pleasant. And so yeah. Yeah. Frog Skull asks, where do you place yourself on the selling out to artistic fulfillment scale? I am very fortunate in that I get to write what I want to write. I write for an audience, and so I don't write for myself. Like when I'm writing that story, I'm not writing it to like please myself, I guess. I'm writing it for other people, and so I'm thinking about them. And I don't know if that is like full artistic fulfillment, but it's where I find the most creative fulfillment is in trying to make things for other people. So, the only time I've ever written about myself in any kind of like direct way is in the Anthropocene Reviewed, and I guess a little bit on Vlogbrothers. And there have been times when we made decisions. There were times when we made decisions on Vlogbrothers that involved money, that involved like wanting to be able to take care of my family and stuff. But I don't have to make those decisions anymore, and so I don't tend to make those compromises. I don't tend to do things for money. But that is obviously a result of a really extreme form of privilege. So I try to be conscious of that. Is Hollywood really that bad? Does it seem that bad? I thought I was toning it down. No, I mean, I don't want it to be, the thing is, I don't want it to be something that like craps on Hollywood. But look, it's different from other forms of art, because for a movie to succeed, millions of people have to see it. Even for an independent movie like Pro Patria Mori to succeed, millions and millions and millions of people have to see it. And to make something that millions of people see involves a lot of, it involves like, a big machine, a big system that has to turn a work of a creative work into a mass media product. And the human beings involved in that system are in a tight spot. That's true for the journalists. It's true for the actors. It's true for the writers. It's true for the producers. It's true for the people who work at the studio. They've got to balance the needs of humans with the ultimate responsibility, which is not to the people It's not to the people. It's to making sure that lots of people see a movie. So first, making a movie that lots of people will see, that's good, hopefully, but that lots of people will see, and then second, making a movie that that lots of people do see, making sure people see it. So yeah. Uh, has influenced the way I think about fame. It's, Hank's work is very concerned with how fame exists on the internet, and my work, of course, is more concerned with how fame exists inside of people's heads, because that's the thing that I write about mostly. Um, yeah. So, uh, eh, yeah. Um, and I think the other thing is that this is going to be like set in 2017 or 2018. So, um, yeah, like that's going to be another, so like obviously, at least as currently written, it's not set in 2020. Um, what? Oh, I died, but I came back. Sorry. I can't see the scroll. But yeah, I just think like I don't know anything about Hollywood in 2020, and I'm not, and also like it's very different now, and I'm more interested in I'm more interested in when power was distributed a little bit differently. I think like right now it's really interesting. You missed that whole story. It wasn't a good story anyway. Um, it wasn't a good story. Somebody asked me what my average time was to publish a book. It's about 8 years. Um, from the time I first start writing to when I finish, I would say like if I averaged it out, sometimes it's 4 years, sometimes it's like 11. So I would say about 8. Uh, how do you think writers will approach writing books set in 2020? I have no idea. And I actually like for me, like when I'm living inside of something, I can't comment on it, and I feel like I can't say anything interesting about it. Maybe I'll have some way into thinking about what now felt like when now doesn't feel like this anymore. But when I'm in the present tense of an experience, like I can't do much with it. Um, yeah. I mean, in the same way that like I take notes now about what now feels like, and I hope that those notes can be useful later, or I might write little sketches of characters who interest me in the context of now or something. I was doing that in 2014 and 2015, but when things were so intense. But I don't. I don't know that I'll ever have anything to say about now except that it sucked and that I'm a little suspicious of any attempts to make it something other than sucking. How are you dividing your time between the Anthropocene Reviewed and the Junket? Oh, I just work on the Anthropocene Reviewed all the time, and then I just do that for fun if I have time. So yeah, I don't treat fiction as I try not to treat fiction as my job until it comes time to like be really serious. And to be honest, like I don't want to publish a book right now. Yeah, just to be transparent, like I want to publish a book of nonfiction. I want to publish a book of essays. I want to be in, thinking about the world through that lens right now. I don't really want to publish fiction right now for a bunch of different reasons, um, and I don't know. Yeah, I also don't know that I ever will. Like yeah, I don't know that. I don't know. Um, it may be that the only way that this lives is through this, which would be fine. Like I mean, I wrote like a lot of a story that I read in a similar way back in like 2010, 2009, 2010, 2011. Um, that was a sequel to a non-existent book, and just never came together. So it's a nice it's nice for me to have this in lieu of that, I guess. Um, yeah. Phew. It was really intense to read that for some reason. Like I kept getting emotional sometimes. Um, Here's a big question from Rebecca. How do the shelves behind you work? Are they cut into the wall? Yes. So they are cut into the wall, and we had a friend who's an architect design this whole space down here. So because like this is also our like I don't know, our TV room. So we wanted to have it so that there's a corner of the room that where I make my videos, but that the rest of the room is devoted to like regular family life stuff, which is like sort of worked, but mostly it's an office, and mostly it's a basement office. Um, did you get a haircut because something feels off? Yeah, I did get a haircut. It was outdoors and masked, but I couldn't go on without getting a haircut. Go to Starbucks order. Oh, Gilly, I don't. I used to go to Starbucks every day. I wrote The Fault in Our Stars to Starbucks, but now I don't go to Starbucks. But when I did go to Starbucks, I would get a grande coffee, black. I'm like the least interesting coffee drinker in the world. That is a secret door. Yes, right. That is the door, and it closes, and it's a secret door. Because when we were moving into this house, Sarah said, "Is there anything that you want in the house?" And I said, "Yes, I want a secret door, and I want a very fancy toilet." And I got both of my wishes. So that's nice. Um, yeah. If I was going to become a patron of one of your projects, which one should I pick? Crash Course or Dear Hank and John? Probably Crash Course. Well, I guess it depends on what perks you want to get, because the money goes to the same place. So like the Dear Hank and John money doesn't like go to line our pockets. It mostly goes to fund Crash Course. And then like it goes to Complexly. So like most of it goes to Crash Course, but then a little bit goes to like Journey to the Microcosmos, or to other things that other projects we have that may not pay for themselves. So it's really about which perks you want, because the money goes to the same place. So I really enjoy every week listening to the stupid Patreon only podcast that Hank and I do about This Week in Good Stuff. But yeah, it's it does it from our perspective. It's all the same. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna. I need to go soon because I read for too long, and I'm sorry that I read for so long. And now I'm also like feeling a little bit embarrassed that I read that much, and I gotta like get over myself a little bit. But I really, really appreciate you all being here, and that was really nice to be able to do. And maybe I'll read more. Maybe it will like motivate me to work on that a little more. I don't have a lot of time right now, but yeah, it was really fun, and it felt interesting. And I really appreciate you being here and solving the puzzle. And I think next week I'll either read more of that, or I'll be back to reading stuff from the Anthropocene Reviewed. But yeah, I mean, my thought at the moment is that it would be nice if I could like push myself to have a couple of kind of edited, fleshed out, revised Anthropocene Reviewed reviews to read, just to practice that and see how it sounds in front of an audience of nice people. But yeah, so I really appreciate y'all being here, and this is just really fun. And yeah, y'all are the best. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day wherever you are. And I will try to upload. I think I will try to keep the schedule. I know the schedule isn't perfect for everyone by definition, but it is perfect for me because it allows me to upload the video, and then while y'all are on the hunt to go take care of my kids, and then to come back for the live stream. So the people who are here now are like, yay, I love this schedule. I know all the people who are watching this later are like, boo, I do not like the schedule. But sorry, it's the only schedule that works for me. I'm going to leave this video up as an unlisted video, so if you want to send it to your friends, that's great. But if you don't mind, don't post it in like super public places, just because then I get annoyed calls from my like my publisher and stuff. I'd just rather not get those. All right. Thank you all. And have a great day.